Have you ever wondered about the rich history of Peru? Well, let's start our journey with the ancient civilizations that called this land home. Among these were the mighty Inca Empire, known for their intricate architecture and extensive road networks that stretched across the Andes. And then there were the pre-Columbian cultures of Moche, Chavin, and Nazca. The Moche were master metallurgists, and their pottery and sculpture work is still admired today. The Chavin left behind monumental temples, displaying their religious fervor and architectural prowess. The Nazca, however, are best known for the mysterious Nazca lines, enormous geoglyphs etched into the desert floor. These civilizations were not just skilled in arts and architecture, they also made significant strides in agriculture, developing advanced irrigation systems and terracing techniques. These early civilizations laid the foundations for the rich and diverse culture that Peru is known for today. But then the Spanish arrived. The 16th century brought a wave of change to Peru when Francisco Pizarro led the Spanish conquest. This period marked the end of the Inca Empire, a civilization that had thrived for centuries. Despite their valiant efforts, the Inca could not withstand the Spanish onslaught. The conquistadors, armed with advanced weaponry and driven by a thirst for gold, overpowered the indigenous people, leading to the fall of the Inca Empire. Following the conquest, the Spanish crown established colonial rule. A new societal structure emerged, one that heavily favored the Spanish and oppressed the indigenous people. The encomienda system was implemented, which allowed Spanish settlers to demand labor or tribute from the native population. The indigenous people were forced to work in harsh conditions, particularly in the silver mines. This period of Spanish conquest and colonial rule drastically changed the course of Peruvian history. Under colonial rule, Peru and its capital, Lima, held a significant status. As the epicenter of the Spanish viceroyalty in South America, Peru was a vital conduit for Spain's imperial ambitions in the New World. The Spanish crown, recognizing the strategic importance of Peru, elevated it to the rank of a viceroyalty, a move that signified its critical role in the colonial administration. Lima, on the other hand, was more than just the capital of the viceroyalty. It was the heart of Spanish power in South America, the hub from which the tendrils of colonial control spread across the continent. Lima was a vibrant city, a melting pot of cultures where Spanish, indigenous, African, and Asian influences intermingled and created a unique colonial society. The city was a center of trade, education, and religious activity, contributing significantly to the cultural and economic development of the region. Through this, Peru became an important center of cultural and economic activity. However, not all accepted the Spanish rule. The indigenous people of Peru, enduring under the yoke of colonial oppression, were not silent spectators. They rose time and again in defiance against the Spanish crown, sparking a series of resistance movements and rebellions that rippled across the Andean highlands. One of the most notable of these was the rebellion led by Tupac Amaru II in the late 18th century. Named after his illustrious ancestor, the last Inca ruler, Tupac Amaru II was a cacique or native leader who courageously rallied his people against the injustices of colonial rule. His rebellion, though ultimately unsuccessful, ignited a flame of resistance that would continue to burn in the hearts of the indigenous people. These uprisings, though often brutally suppressed, shaped the course of Peruvian history, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's collective memory and identity. The early 19th century brought a wind of change. Peru, like its neighbors, yearned for independence from Spanish rule. The struggle was long and arduous, but the desire for freedom was unquenchable. Leading this fight for sovereignty were two formidable figures, José de San Martín and Simón Bolívar. José de San Martín from Argentina and Simón Bolívar from Venezuela were the architects of the South American revolutions. They rallied their forces and led strategic campaigns that gradually weakened the stronghold of the Spanish crown. Yet the defining moment of this struggle was the Battle of Ayacucho in 1824. This decisive confrontation saw the combined forces of independentist South American nations clashing with the Spanish royalists. The victory of the independentist forces in Ayacucho was a turning point. It ended Spanish dominion in South America and marked the beginning of a new era for Peru. With the Battle of Ayacucho, Peru finally gained its independence. Yet independence did not bring immediate stability. Indeed, Peru's journey to nationhood was fraught with difficulties. In the aftermath of its liberation from Spanish rule, the country grappled with the complexities of state building. The task of constructing a cohesive national identity from a diverse array of cultures, languages, and social structures was no small feat. Political instability soon became the order of the day, with power struggles between regional caudillos or strongmen who sought to control their own fiefdoms. This period was also marked by a series of civil wars as different factions vied for control of the nascent republic. Centralization versus federalism became a key debate as leaders wrestled with the question of how best to govern this vast and diverse land. Yet, through the turbulence and turmoil, Peru demonstrated a remarkable resilience. The country weathered these storms, learning and adapting along the way. Despite these challenges, Peru persevered and continued to grow. The late 19th and early 20th centuries brought periods of economic boom and bust. During this time, Peru saw the rise of the rubber boom in the Amazon region. With the advent of the Industrial Revolution, the global demand for rubber skyrocketed, and Peru found itself sitting on a gold mine. This boom led to an influx of wealth, but it also brought about social and environmental issues, including the exploitation of indigenous communities and deforestation. Parallel to this, the Guano era unfolded along the coastline. Guano, or bird droppings, became a highly prized fertilizer worldwide. This white gold contributed to a significant economic upswing. However, like the rubber boom, it wasn't without its drawbacks. Overharvesting led to environmental degradation and created a dependency on a single resource. These booms and busts were not just fleeting episodes. They had lasting impacts, shaping the modern Peruvian economy and society. The lessons learned from these periods continue to echo in Peru's approach to resource management and economic diversification. These booms and busts shaped the modern Peruvian economy. The 20th century brought new challenges and changes. In Peru, the era was marked by the rise of indigenous movements and a growing call for agrarian reform. These movements stemmed from a deep-seated desire for social justice and equitable land distribution. Indigenous communities, long marginalized and dispossessed, began to assert their rights and demand recognition. Their cause gained momentum, culminating in the Agrarian Reform Program under President Juan Velasco Alvarado. Alvarado's ambitious initiative sought to dismantle the age-old hacienda system, redistribute land to the rural poor, and fundamentally reshape Peruvian agriculture. This was a transformative period, brimming with hope, conflict, and controversy. The reforms were not without their critics or challenges, but they marked a pivotal moment in the nation's history. Key figures emerged during this time, like the influential indigenous leader Hugo Blanco, who fiercely championed the rights of rural workers. These movements brought significant changes to Peruvian society. Yet, the late 20th century also brought conflict. As the shadows of the 20th century began to lengthen, Peru found itself grappling with internal strife. The Shining Path, or Sendero Luminoso, emerged as a Maoist guerrilla organization, igniting an insurgency that would last for more than a decade. Led by philosophy professor Abimael Guzman, the Shining Path sought to overthrow the Peruvian government and establish a communist peasant revolutionary state. Their brutal tactics, which included bombings, assassinations, and forced recruitments, sparked a period of intense violence and terror. In response, the Peruvian government launched a series of counterinsurgency measures, often leading to human rights abuses and further escalating the violence. The conflict, which also involved the Tupac Amaru revolutionary movement, resulted in the loss of tens of thousands of lives and displacement of countless individuals. The impact of this violence rippled across Peruvian society, causing deep social and political divisions that are still felt today. These conflicts left deep scars on Peruvian society. Today, Peru stands as a nation of growth and potential, yet faces many challenges. In the contemporary era, Peru has seen significant economic growth. This growth has been driven by a diversification of Peru's economy, with sectors such as mining, manufacturing, and services playing a pivotal role. Peru has also successfully integrated itself into the global economy. It has fostered international trade relationships and attracted foreign investments, becoming a key player in the global supply chain. This global integration has contributed to Peru's economic advancement, offering new opportunities for its people and businesses. But the story of contemporary Peru isn't just about economic growth. It's also about the challenges that persist. Poverty remains a pressing issue, with many Peruvians still living below the poverty line. While the country's economy grows, the wealth is not evenly distributed, leading to stark inequality. This inequality is visible in many aspects of Peruvian society, from access to education and healthcare to opportunities for economic advancement. Environmental degradation is another significant challenge. As Peru exploits its rich natural resources for economic growth, it faces the difficult task of balancing development with environmental preservation. Deforestation, pollution, and climate change pose threats to Peru's diverse ecosystems, impacting not only wildlife but also the livelihoods of many Peruvians, particularly those in rural communities. Lastly, political corruption remains a pervasive problem. Despite efforts to combat it, corruption persists at various levels of government, undermining public trust and hampering effective governance. This corruption not only hinders economic development, but also exacerbates social inequalities. Despite these challenges, Peru continues to move forward, carrying with it a rich and diverse history. It's a nation that's constantly evolving, grappling with its past while striving to build a better future. And that's the intriguing story of Peru, a story of growth, struggle, resilience, and hope.